Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to call to order the regular scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust. And the first item on our agenda is to approve the minutes of our April 9th meeting.
So moved.
Have motion made and
Second.
second to approve the minutes. Are there any questions or comments about the minutes that have been distributed to the trustees? Hearing none, please cast your votes. And the minutes are approved. Thank you very much. The second item on our agenda is to ratify some of the claims that we've paid over the last month, and these are in your packet. Are there any questions or comments? Yes, question.
Yes, Pat, I have a question as to why we have two amounts from AAA in Northern California in the document.
Yes, ma'am. AAA had some difficult times getting their documentation together over the last year, and that reflects year 2 and year 3 payments. So it's 2 years' worth of payments. So when we separate those out, that's what that's about.
Ron, did that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When we have two payments for the Mary Gardens Foundation, would you like to explain those?
Typically what was happening there, since we didn't have a meeting 2 weeks ago, that reflects 2 months' worth of payments. It's just a timing thing that we only pay them on a monthly basis.
So the first payment was for $5,897. The second payment was for $1 million. I'm sorry, $79,000. I got. The management fee makes sense because we've done that before, but we've got other additional services for the I'm sorry. Transitions, staffing to the Mary Gardens Foundation.
I think the $79,000 payment is the usual management fee that they receive every month. And then the other one is a amendment that was negotiated to the agreement with the foundation for some transitional staffing. So it's just it's just kind of the difference for that amendment.
Are there any other questions about the ratification of the payments?
No, but we'd like to move approval.
Have a motion made and second to approve the ratification or ratify the payments. Are there any further questions or comments? Please cast your votes, and we have ratified. Thank you very much. Next item are some items for individual consideration. Item 4A is a joint resolution with the City of Oklahoma City approving the allocation of $4.5 million of gold obligation limited tax bond proceeds for the Boeing Company. Are there any questions or comments? Catherine, would you like to say something?
Just a few comments, just as a reminder. This is for the Boeing application that is to create about 800 new jobs. The average wage is about $84,000 a year. Plan to create just under $16 million a year in payroll in the first year. So this is, previously you had authorized the general manager to negotiate an agreement. So this is the result of that and the amount that we determined that they were eligible for under our program. So that's the $4.5 million. And then the next item is the actual agreement.
Okay. We're going to talk about these two items at the same time and vote on them separately. Is that correct? Item B is a follow-up. It's the actual agreement with the Boeing Company. Are there any questions or comments on either one of these items? Your chair will entertain a motion to approve item A.
Approve.
Have a motion made and second. Is there any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And item A is approved. Item B, any comments or questions on item B? The chair will entertain a motion to approve item B.
Second.
A motion made and second. Any further discussion? Please cast your votes. And item 4B is approved. Item 4C is a TIF project. Kathy, you want to say anything about that?
Sure. This is an allocation of funds from TIF District Number 8, which is the TIF district that was created for the Devon World Headquarters. In the budget for that TIF district, funds were allocated for the other taxing jurisdictions. Oklahoma County came to the TIF Review Committee several weeks ago with a request for $4 million for improvements to the county annex building, and that's what this request is for. It's basically renovation of all the systems in the building, replacing ceiling tiles, all those kinds of things.
Are there any questions about this particular item? Yes.
What is housed in the annex building?
Oklahoma County Assessor, Court Clerk, DA's office.
Thank you.
Are there any comments or questions? How much money will be left in that TIF fund allocation for the other taxing jurisdictions?
Is it 8 million? About 8 million.
About $8 million. Comments or questions? Chair will entertain a motion to approve item 4C.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion made and second. Are there any further comments or questions? Please cast your votes. And item 4C is approved. Thank you. 4D is another county project, Oklahoma County project, and this is from TIF 2, I believe. Are there questions or comments?
This is a similar kind of project, but it is from TIF 2, the downtown TIF district. Again, we had allocated money in the budget for that TIF district to the other taxing jurisdictions, and this is a request from the county to make improvements to their parking garage.
Any questions or comments? Chair will entertain a motion to approve the project.
Second.
Have a motion made and second. Are there further discussion? Please cast your votes. And the item is approved. Okay, item 4E. Kathy, this is a little different one. It's some money for OPUB. You want to say some words about this?
Sure. The Oklahoma Publishing, well, let's start. TIF number 8 has funding set aside for other economic developments. As a part of the redevelopment proposal from Devon headquarters, when they asked us to create the TIF district, they wanted us to set aside money to attract headquarters companies to downtown Oklahoma City as one of the requirements of their location to Oklahoma City. When we developed the TIF plan, we set aside money for that purpose. The Oklahoma Publishing Company has decided that they would like to relocate their offices from their current location on Broadway to downtown Oklahoma City. Their buildings on Broadway have been sold to American Fidelity, and so they needed to find a new home. So they have requested $1.5 million from TIF 8, from that other economic development fund, to relocate 350 employees to downtown Oklahoma City. I think one of the really good things about this project is that, first of all, we're going to have 350 more people downtown, but they will also be located in the Century Center building, which, if you're familiar with it, the commercial space in that building has gone unoccupied for probably about 25 years now. It never was really utilized in the way that it was intended, so we're hoping that with the renovation of the Century Center that's been approved under separate TIF agreements, and the relocation of OPUBCO into that space will really help revitalize that building, bring life back to that corner of downtown in a very strategic location adjacent to the Myriad Gardens and the Colcourt Hotel and the Convention Center. So Gary Pearson with the Oklahoma Publishing Company is here this afternoon if you have any questions specifically about the project. But one of the things I would say about the amount is that we've tried to tie the amount to the investment that they plan to make in the building. They plan to spend about another $3 million in tenant improvements above and beyond what their landlord plans to put into the building. So we looked at generation of additional tax revenues that are associated with their lease on the building and the purchase of those kinds of tenant improvements over a 10-year period, and it comes to about $1.3 million. So we feel that it's a good investment for downtown Oklahoma City.
Are there any questions or comments? Yes, ma'am.
I think, Gary, in terms of overall timing, when are you targeting to be in the facility, ideally?
12 months. And that's mainly because of the delay associated with, do I need to be voting?
Please, it'd be helpful, because we can record it that way.
12 months, and the length of that period is principally driven by the 2 additional stories of parking that's going to be built on top of the space. If it wasn't for that, we'd be in 4 or 5 months.
I think it's really exciting to have the state's leading newspaper downtown again. Thank you.
We're excited to be downtown. Thank you.
It'll be very exciting. Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to move approval.
Second.
A motion made and seconded to approve it. Further questions or comments? Please cast your votes, and the item is approved. Congratulations. Look forward to seeing you here. Item F is amendment number 2 to contract for engineering services, project PC 0388, and it provides for a transportation engineer. Are there any comments from staff?
Eric Winger's here to answer any questions or give a little background on this item.
Thank you. I think as you look at this item and you look at the next item, the items are actually the same. We are going through a closeout process right now of all the original Project 180 contracts, packages 1 through 5. And so one of the things that I've done is I've contacted each of the consultants to make sure that if there was any additional work that was performed that needed to be reconciled, we do that now before we go full steam into packages 6 and 7. On your agenda today, you have 2 of those items. You have amendment number 2. This was to our traffic consultant, and they did perform some additional work. Now, TEC in this capacity, they actually supported the 8 individual engineering contracts that were a part of those first 5 packages. They provided plan sheets to each of them. They were involved very, very early in the process and actually did estimates based on some conceptual drawings. The reason for the change and the addition to the contract is that when final plans were actually produced, there were changes that they then had to redo. And so this $30,000 pays for the additional work that they had, the difference between what was done conceptually and then what was done as a part of final design. And so through negotiation, we settled on this amount and we'll recommend it for approval.
Eric, any other questions of Eric? And when do you think this is going to be finished, Eric?
We actually have package 5 is going to be 100% complete in early June. And so that'll wrap up this first phase of Project 180.
Any other questions? Chair will entertain a motion to approve item F.
Approved.
A motion made and seconded. Further questions? Cast your votes. The item is approved. Eric, you want to try to tie item G to that now?
I'd be happy to. This is just another one of the consultants. This is one of the 8. This is for Johnson and Associates. They had several changes that occurred on package 5 here, and you'll notice several of those in the 3rd paragraph. There was additional field inspections, contract administration, project coordination, some design and other services related to changes that occurred in the areas of Lee and Colcord. There were additional utilities that were uncovered during construction that they had to coordinate that just weren't known at the time that they started the design. And then they also assisted the city on some of the signal light replacements that were required due to some adverse weather that was experienced. And so we had negotiated a final settlement amount of $10,000 for the consulting services.
Questions? Chair will entertain a motion to approve item G.
Move approval.
Motion made and seconded. Please cast your votes. The item is approved. You're on a roll, Eric. Why don't you go on to the next one?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on your agenda is item H, amendment number 6 and change order number 6, and it's for a series of projects, all related to streetscape package number 5. It's a net decrease of $16,716, but you'll notice in the summary there's an amendment 6, and you'll see the status of each of the projects. You'll see that there's a $27,000 credit on the PC project, a $47,000 add on the WC. The WC is the water line. The PC is the paving, and the SC is the sewer. But you'll see that the net result of the amendment is a credit of $160,000. On the amendment, you'll see that it's a net add of $144,000. That is what comes to the net decrease of $16,716.05. Major items that are included in the change order and the amendment: there was a significant amount of structural concrete. This was unit price bid that was not required, $175,000 credit. There was a change in the water line, so there is a credit for 6-inch water line and an add for 2-inch water line, and that makes up the majority of the change order. Excuse me, on the amendment. The majority of the change order is actually in 2 items. You'll note those as the OG&E vault and sidewalk access. Some of the challenges that we had during construction of 180 was the timeline in coordination with some of the utilities, and in this case, we actually rebuilt one of the OG&E vaults. It comes at a significant cost, but it was either build it on the Project 180 timeline or wait for OG&E contractors to come at a later date. So to facilitate getting streets open timely to make sure that we were pushing the project forward. Those items have been included in the amendment. As I previously mentioned, Package 5 should be 100% complete here in the early part of June.
Any questions, comments? Chair will entertain a motion to approve item H.
Move approval.
Have motion made and second. Any further questions? Cast your votes. And item H is approved. Thank you very much. Item J, final specifications for project TC 0430, signal installations and repairs. Eric, would you like to say something about this one?
I think I have it as item I. Are we okay? Okay. I just want to make sure I'm on the right item.
I'm sorry. You're right.
This is a new specification that's been prepared by the Public Works Department. As you'll know from the Project 180 work that's been complete, the lighting, the signals, they're a different type of signal than you will normally find across the city. They were specialized. They were ordered just for the downtown streetscapes, and all of those were installed as a part of construction. But now that we're going into a maintenance mode, we need the ability to be able to buy parts for those poles. And so this contract will allow us, or this advertisement will allow us to go out under contract and to be able to buy parts. We can buy just a pole or just an arm. We can buy just a light or broken part. It could be something from a traffic accident or from weather. So this gives us a lot of flexibility in the future to add this to our inventory. It's just not covered under our current annual contract with the city for all the other poles that are in Oklahoma City. So with that, I think completes this. It will be something that will annually renew, and as we continue to expand the system, this will just provide for ongoing maintenance.
And how will those additions be paid for?
You know, at this point, this will come out of Public Works CIP type accounts, and so we're coming, again, out of the construction mode. It will no longer be Project 180 expenses. This one on the source of funds, at least to get things started while we're under construction, you'll notice that the account is TIF 8, but we will be transitioning that, obviously, over time to more of a maintenance type account from Public Works in the city of Oklahoma City.
Do you anticipate a stockpile of pieces or order them as they're needed?
We'll actually keep an inventory because the lead time on some of those can be several months.
Are there any other questions? Yes, John.
Is the $1 million figure an annual figure?
It is the estimate, I believe, for the upcoming year, yes. And again, it would be on an as-needed. When we do contracts of this type, we simply set a cap so that we don't exceed that without coming back for additional authorization. So we would expect to be under that. It could be significantly under, just depending on the number of accidents or damages that might occur in the coming year.
They can't drive fast in Oklahoma City. Are there questions, comments, meaningful comments? Chair, entertain a motion to approve item I.
Move to approve.
You have a motion made and second. Rhonda, please don't back. All those in favor, cast your votes, and item is approved. Thank you very much. Item J is Alliance for Economic Development, Oklahoma City report. Kathy, you have some words you'd like to say about that one?
Sure. Enclosed in your packet is the quarterly report for the Alliance for Economic Development for the third quarter of this fiscal year. On this report, we included an executive summary to kind of hit the highlights of what we're doing over the past quarter. Just to kind of go through a few of those, we've been very involved in the MAPS 3 projects since MAPS 3 passed, but in the last quarter, just to kind of let you know what we do, is we participated in some of the consultant coordination meetings where we get all of the consultants working on all of the MAPS projects together in the same room and kind of hash through issues and discuss different design aspects of all the projects so that we make sure we all have a good understanding of how the projects will work together. We've also included the design consultants for the boulevard in those meetings because the boulevard will touch the convention center, the park, the streetcar, so many of the MAPS projects, and has an impact on economic development. So we've been very involved in the MAPS 3 projects. Also in this past quarter, discussions have begun about the development of a convention center hotel. That project will be moving forward in the next month with some information for the City Council to consider about how to proceed with the development of a convention center hotel. One of the other things that we've been working on quite extensively is parking garage development, especially for the Central Business District. We worked with COTPA to coordinate the development of the garage south of City Hall. That garage is being constructed on property that was privately owned and property that was owned by the Urban Renewal Authority. So we've been helping to coordinate and facilitate that construction project. We also had a request for proposals out for the development of office or residential on the top of the garage. As of last week, we didn't receive any responses to that RFP, but the Urban Renewal Authority has retained the air rights and the right to look at developing that in the future. So I think that will be a project that comes back at some point.
How many cars?
The garage will park 835 cars.
And the first floor, is that still?
Is still commercial, yeah, retail space. About 25,000 square feet of commercial or retail space on the first floor, 835 parking spaces. So it's about a 10-story building when it's finished.
And when will it be finished? I mean, assuming everything goes this week.
13 months from when they began construction. So 13 months from this month.
Roughly a year, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
As you all know, we've been very involved in TIF allocations. I think you've seen most of those as they've come forward. OPUBCO was one of those. The Meideke building in Bricktown, projects for sidewalk improvements in Bricktown to some of the public spaces and amenities that were built in Bricktown. Also allocations to the Century Center that we touched on briefly, but there were allocations made to renovate the commercial space. There was an allocation made to COTPA to help with the funding of improvements to their part of the parking that's owned in the Century Center. So those two things went forward this last quarter and were approved. Also, we finalized budget changes and new budgets for Project 180 in the past quarter, and the city was able to issue about $147 million in TIF 8 bonds to repay the interim loan from Devon. We were also very involved in the negotiations with General Growth Properties and the attraction of Von Maur to Quail Springs Mall. Again, you guys have seen a lot of these projects already and you know about them, so I don't think we need to go into a lot of detail. And then the last one I'll hit on is the Journal Record Building. We're also involved through the Industrial and Cultural Facilities Trust in the possible sale of the Journal Record Building to a private party. We received proposals for that redevelopment this past quarter, and Brent and I are working with the developer to kind of structure the financial package and try to get that building sold and no longer owned by the INC Trust. Just a couple of other things attached to the report this month is the new newsletter that the Alliance is issuing every couple of weeks, just to kind of highlight a few of the projects that we've been working on. We included a copy of that. If you're not on our mailing list, I'll make sure that your emails are added so that you can receive that every couple of weeks. And then finally, I'd like to introduce Jerry Kenfield. Jerry is the new Chief Financial Officer for the Alliance, and she started on Monday. So very happy to have her on our staff and beginning to make some of the staffing changes and reorganization that we had planned.
Thank you. Welcome, Jerry. Glad to have you aboard. One of the things Kathy mentioned was to get all the consultants for maps together in one room and exchange information. That sounded simple, but that was a major accomplishment to do that sort of thing. We've had projects going on in the city for several years where the consultants don't talk to each other, don't even know about the other one going. And so I think it was, it sounded simple, sounded easy. It wasn't. It was complicated, and it's a brand new idea that we've, that by necessity, I think, has developed in this particular. So many moving parts to this project, we needed to do something like that.
And I just want to say, though, that the city has some of the best consultants in the country, probably in the world, for the different kind of projects we're working on, and it really is wonderful to get them all in the same room and hear them talk and discuss issues and ideas. So.
Great report, Kathy. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the report from the Oklahoma City Economic Development. Pardon? Oh, I'm sorry, Larry.
Couple of questions, Kathy, and you may or may not be able to address these, and I understand why. On page 5, under 11 public interest projects, you participated in Venture District stakeholders to develop a strategic plan for the area. This morning, quite a bit of conversation on the Horseshoe arose over the Adventure line going from downtown out to the Adventure District, and the fact that it might go through an area where a private developer was interested in I guess, building a parking garage that was announced last week? Mr. Karchman?
Yes.
Okay. And the general impression I got was that the conversation was, we don't know what's going on. We're doing this stuff and we're not integrated. Do you have any comments on that? Did your group get involved in any of
Yes,
that?
we've been involved in it. Yes, we've been in meetings with the private developer that's interested in developing the property into a parking garage. The rail right-of-way on the north edge of that property remains in place in his current design of that parking garage. So the line to the Adventure District could still happen.
So both of those could coexist?
I believe they could, yes. Okay. And we have been trying to coordinate that. Obviously, a good deal of the land that private developer would like to build that garage on is currently under a lease from the city. So it will really be up to the city council whether or not they want to terminate that lease and sell that property to him so that he can finance that parking garage. So
from your perspective, things are being coordinated on that whole...
I believe they are.
Okay, thank you. One other question then, and on the same paragraph 11 on page 6, producers co-op and big industrial about plans to reconfigure and remodel the old Dayton tire facility. Since that's in my ward, do you have any comments on that you can share, or would you?
Sure. Producers co-op purchased a good portion of the old Dayton tire facility. They have moved some of their canola operation, or they've moved all of their canola operation to that plant. They don't need all of the building and land that they purchased, so they have put that on the market and would like to sell it to some other industrial user. And it's a good asset for us to have because we need industrial property. So that's really kind of where that is right now. And then Big Industrial has met with us about possibly kind of reconfiguring the space and co-developing some project out there to develop more industrial product.
Thank you.
Now, are there any other questions or comments before I move on? We have a presentation now from the Oklahoma City Economic Development Foundation. Those of you who have been here before realize this is the searchers, the hunters who go out and bring these new businesses, prospects to Oklahoma City, and we're the skinners. We take care of them when they get here.
Well, just for the recording, I'm Kurt Foreman with Greater Oklahoma City Chamber, involved with the foundation, and we're glad to be with you today to give you a quick update. As usual, there's a report here for you that outlines the various, in both narrative form and table form, the different things we're working on. My apologies, there's a loose sheet in behind tab A. We discovered a couple hours ago some of the year-to-date numbers were wrong in one of the tables, so that sheet updates it, and we'll send you an electronic version for your files so you have a completely updated version. But last time I spoke with you, I shared with you that we had experienced quite a lull in the fall because we believe because of the election cycle and a number of other things. The good news is that this past quarter and already just since the quarter ended, we are extremely busy. Things have really picked up dramatically, and very good projects are in the works. You'll see in the numbers that we are tracking quite well. We also, for example, if you look at the first table on tab A, we have a target of hitting 300 companies. At the end of March, we were at 216. We expect to exceed our number of 300. We are fully staffed up now on our BRE program and expect to exceed those numbers. We expect to exceed the numbers of jobs and the number of, well, maybe not the number of companies. We visit as many as we can. We only count them as assists if they actually need assistance. They don't get help to cross the street if they don't need help to cross the street. So, but our numbers are strong on wages and all those factors. On the attract to market, because the fall was such a lull, we may not hit those numbers in some of the criteria, but the number of leads has dramatically come back up again this spring, and the number of prospects is coming up. we will exceed the investment numbers. Those numbers are very strong. Just so you know, for example, General Electric, which was announced recently, we're not counting those in these numbers because we're working with Kathy and others to try to figure out where they're going to land. So if they land outside the city, they obviously wouldn't count in our numbers here. They are looking at the city, and if they land, that's $125 million, just that one project. So we will likely exceed our investment numbers by quite a bit. On the next page, in terms of stories that we help generate or help to cover, we are well in excess of our numbers. The retail numbers have come up real well. Jessica Herrera, who I believe you've all met at different points, she's really come into her own, and we're gearing up for ICSC, which will be in the fourth quarter numbers. The team is gearing up. I think it's about a week and a half till you guys go, and we have Sunday, the weeks come flying up. We have 32 appointments scheduled. The goal was 15. We have 32 appointments, actually maybe 34. She's going to update me this afternoon. So things have really picked up. So the good news is we're back on track. The economy seems to be doing well. Most of our success continues to be existing employers, yet we're supplementing that with great projects, hopefully like General Electric. So we're real pleased with all that. The other piece that's with you is our Velocity magazine, which is a hard copy. It doesn't do quite justice to it because if you look at it online, all those pictures are actually video stories that you can click on and see a video of someone talking or going through the story. So we've revamped a number of our pieces, including A Better Life OKC. If you've never been on that site, that's a website that started out being for Boeing and has turned into a site that is meant for any company to use as they're recruiting employees from outside the market to help them understand what it's like to live, work, and play here, to help perhaps their spouse or partner understand what they're getting themselves into if they move here. And so that's been completely revamped. There's a lot of new tools out there for companies. So we're real pleased that the toolkit is robust and we're out on the road telling the story. Yes, ma'am.
Kurt, what's the distribution on the hard copy of? Who are these mailed to?
We do send them out some. We also include them in packets. The mailing is probably anywhere from 500 to 1,000. We target it at consultants and key people like that. So it's not a consumer-based product in the sense that we would mail it to whole neighborhoods or whole communities, but it's used on a more tactical basis. We try to leverage the web version because it is such a dramatic piece. It's gotten a number of recognitions nationally for how interesting and different it is. And so it really tells the story of our community in a way that a static document can't. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any. There's just a lot of good things going on right now.
Comments, questions? Kurt, you got it?
Again, we appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
The Chamber's done a great job. The General Electric, the Boeing people, when they first announced that Long Beach, they were moving people here, the response after the Chamber went out there was 5 times what Boeing expected it to be. So it's been a real successful effort by the Chamber. Are there any questions or comments? Okay, we have another presentation from I2E. Scott, how are you, sir?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Scott Meacham with I2E here today. I'm going to present a proposal to you all that the genesis of it is a meeting we had several months ago with Kathy and Brent, and then we had a later follow-up meeting where we brought Kurt Foreman in. At I2E, we had a bit of a problem. We had received a couple of years ago a grant from the federal government for funds to invest in Oklahoma. $5 million of those funds we dedicated to a new area for us called the Grow OK Fund. A new area being that normally our business is helping to start new businesses. And that is kind of, we give advisory services to those businesses and we make investments in those businesses. What Grow OK was for existing businesses. And we have certain deadlines we had to meet to commit those funds to pull the grant funds down, and quite frankly, we're running a bit behind. I think in part because that was a new space for us and people weren't really used to us being in that space and having funds in that space. So we came and we met with Kathy and Brent and talked to them about our problem to see if they had any deals that perhaps we could work together on. Kathy suggested that you all had some SIP funds for small businesses that really had yet to be deployed yet. And so we started thinking, is there something we could do for small businesses in Oklahoma City? I mean, you all do it a lot. You talked about it today. You do a lot for the bigger companies. Where we really want to focus is on small businesses in Oklahoma City. And use a perfect example. Let's say you're a small manufacturing business in Oklahoma City. If you go talk to any of those, by the way, it's a pretty tough business out there right now in the manufacturing sector. Many of them need to make investments to get into either new products or new markets to be competitive. And if you're in a business that is either growing rapidly or if you're in a business with tough competition, you typically don't have the cash that a bank is going to require you to get in the deal. Your bank will normally tell you, if you need $1 million, we need to have $200,000 in cash as a down payment to help you buy this new equipment. Plus, you also have to finance all the raw materials and all those types of things. What this program does is by utilizing funds from both the trust and from I2E, we can help those companies with those equity down payments in those new investments, and thereby leverage all of our dollars and come out with a lot better deal. I'll kind of walk you through about what I'm talking about. But this is basically a program that we're proposing between us, between the trust, and the foundation, and the chamber. And I think in terms of pictures, so I have a graphical picture to show you kind of what we're talking about. Our money typically comes in as equity or what we call near equity. So we come in as preferred stock investors or as convertible note investors. Your money would typically come in as a low interest loan. So what we're looking at is taking those two pools of capital that we would manage and then investing those in Oklahoma City businesses. And we'll talk more about the parameters around that, but typically we'd look at $100,000 to $250,000 per company, which if you start doing the math and the 20% down payment I'm talking about, that would be up to $1,250,000 in deal size, potentially more if they put more of their own capital into the project. If you take the whole program out, we're looking at a potential impact in just loan funds of $10 million by that type of leveraging investments. Again, we would administer and manage the program. We would report quarterly to the foundation and trust. As far as the qualifications, again, we're looking at small businesses, and typically we use the SBA's definition of small business because that's something that everybody knows and can agree to. Businesses located within the city limits of Oklahoma City. Our focus will be on companies creating primary jobs. That's shorthand for basically non-retail. Both your funds and our funds cannot be used for retail. So we're looking, again, at manufacturing, those types of jobs, those primary jobs that, the economic development professionals will tell you give you the most economic bang for your buck. We'll also require at least a dollar-for-dollar co-investment at the deal level, meaning that although we hope we're going to be leveraging a whole lot more dollars, they would at a minimum have to match whatever we put in through either cash they put in, loan funds they can bring to the table, whatever. So we're getting at least a minimum of 1-to-1 leverage on our money. Again, I think it'll be much higher, but that would be a minimum program requirement. So some of the things you could use the money for: construction and renovation of qualified facilities, equipment, developmental engineering and design related to those types of products, infrastructure including site improvements, and qualified site acquisition or land assembly. Again, these basically came right out of your SIP program requirements. We took out some of the things we couldn't do with our funds, but basically, it again is to help grow companies. Cannot use it for, and these come from requirements for our funds, we can't use it to acquire a company or for refinancing existing debt, but if we were doing a restart or something like that, we could use these funds for potentially for operating capital. As I said earlier, we can't use it for retail businesses. We can't use it for commercial real estate development and oil and gas exploration or production. We have quite a few of those already in Oklahoma City. We probably don't need help anymore. Sure, Rhonda.
Would you explain what the services provided to individuals? It says retail business services provided to
I think that's trying to make it's a further explanation of what a retail business is. So, a barber shop, a clothing store, something like that. Services that are basically provided directly to individuals. Now, business-to-business services would qualify. Right. And as would oil field services, things like that. So there are things in those areas that although you can't do exploration and production, you could do a service company, you could do which we have a lot of, like valve manufacturers and pipe manufacturers, things like that in Oklahoma City. By the way, that's one of the places they're really getting hurt by foreign competition, and that's a tough business, and somebody we ought to be helping. So anyway, those are the types of things that we would do. The way the program would work is we would develop the applications, the marketing materials, be kind of primarily responsible for marketing the program, select and accept applications, do the underwriting, primary underwriting, do all that. Then we would turn the underwriting over to the foundation that we do. You all would also help us in development of application marketing materials and hopefully help us market the program also, although we're going to take primary responsibility. You would do your own independent kind of second look at what we do to make sure you agree with it. And then primarily the chamber would kind of be the boots on the field, so to speak, because they have this great network out there of both communications devices and people that can help place these funds. Because what we all really want to happen is we don't want to make another program and then nobody uses the program. We want to get the funds deployed. We think that banks are a primary target to work with. Because, again, this wouldn't be competing with banks. This would be complementary to deals they're trying to do but couldn't quite get there. So we think it's a very complementary relationship, and so we would market that to banks in the chamber to help us in all that, doing all that marketing. So how the underwriting due diligence process will work in a little more detail. We would manage, and we have a lot of expertise at underwriting and due diligence. We do it every day. I mean, that's part of what we do, and we develop that expertise. We put a due diligence package together, in essence, and then we would turn it over to the foundation staff to review our recommendation, bring it to you all, and ultimately to the city council to determine, is this something we want to put the funds in. So we have that sort of second look and accountability to what we're doing. You're not just relying on us. And then once it is approved, we would prepare the documentation and close the loan, but we'd be using documentation that you guys have already pre-approved. So we have sort of our documentation that we use for the equity side. You all would provide pre-approved documentation for the notes, the low-interest notes, and we would utilize those notes. So every time we do a deal, we're not having to, reinvent the wheel, so to speak. Because we're really doing this as efficiently as we possibly can. Some of the metrics, what we would do is we'd report to you on a quarterly report all of our activities, both as far as investments and repayments. The metrics we would be looking at, of course, would be job creation, I might add, or retained, because we always sort of consider jobs retained as good as jobs created. And also the amount of private investment that we're leveraging into that. How much other capital are we pulling in because of this capital that we are putting into the project. So basically what I think this does is it offers sort of a level of Oklahoma City business that hasn't really seen a lot of services, a opportunity to access some capital to help them in their growth plans. And so we're really excited about it, and hopefully you guys will agree this is a good opportunity for Oklahoma City small businesses. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Yeah, as I understand it, the staff will continue discussing this thing with you, and we'll come back with some kind of a final report for us to approve if we decide to do it. Scott, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the General Manager's report. Any questions or comments on the General Manager's report? I have a question. On the list, what is called a project scorecard, we currently still list Chesapeake Energy. Has there been any change in their plans due to the sort of the reshuffling they've had out there?
No, sir. The last report that I had was through December of 2012, and they had, even with their spinoff to the midstream, they still met the requirements of the contract. So, and they had it, if you'll look on page, let's see what page is that on? On page 5, there's an update there where they finished the second year with jobs that had an average salary of $141,000. They qualified for $875,000. So they were well above. They were 738 jobs above their baseline that we created when we initially did the deal. So they're still plugging along.
Alive and well, that's very good.
Yes, sir.
Great. Are there any other questions or comments? Larry?
Just a quick question on that. Larry, if I was an entrepreneur in the energy business, and I was starting up a new company in the energy business, I could qualify possibly for SIP funds based on the number of jobs that I added over a period of time?
I'm looking at Kathy on this one. Is it?
I think we'd have to look at that pretty carefully.
Yeah, but, yeah, not because it's energy related. I mean, we have other energy related companies that we've worked with, obviously. Chesapeake and Continental are the biggest examples.
The thing is, if I was Aubrey McClendon and I was starting this new company, would they not possibly be eligible for SIP funds?
Possibly.
Okay, that's...
Any questions or comments? Any comments from the trustees? Comments from the staff? Comments from the public? Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you very much.